are here at Global Electronics Association Apex 2026, the final day. It's been a great week. We're joined this morning by Oren from Siemens EDA. So welcome aboard. We were just over at their booth this morning checking out some of the cool solutions they have. So thanks for joining us on set today.
And beyond all the cool solutions you guys already had, I believe you're going to be folding some more into your portfolio, right? You guys recently acquired another company. You want to talk about that?
That's true, yeah. So we recently announced the acquisition of Aster out of France. So they're based in France, northern France, in Rennes. And they have some unique technology around design for test, testability analysis. And this is really, I think, something in the industry which, unlike DFM, which has matured and has acceptance and everybody understand that they need the DFM flow, whether they use Siemens or another solution, but that's something more established. Yeah. Design for test is still really in its beginning, and we can really impact the industry with this new technology.
Is the point of having a better DFT to iterate through all of the revs and iterations before you get through your final product, like to debug?
So I think the challenge today is that people design boards with low testability. The boards have become very complex, they're very dense, and there's just not enough test points to physically test the board.
That's what I noticed the most, right? So I had a customer come to me and ask me, like, do you have flying probe, right? And do you have assembly flying probe, right?
Yeah.
And they were like, oh, I would love to be able to test this and do like a functional test. And I'm like, you do know this is a completely different board. Like, you have to put test points between these points if you want to test these.
Yes.
Otherwise, you're going to smash into the pad. Like, there's no other way around it.
Yeah.
So picture every board you have, they have to have test points everywhere around it. And I just assumed, it's very rare that I see it happen where they actually have that ability, like, on the board themselves. So to have a software that could do it for you, I'm hoping automatically.
Yeah, so the challenge also is that some people do leave test points, but then they leave, too many test points that cover these nets, but no test points for the other nets. Or they give you test points for the nets which aren't that critical. So also that is, a trade-off of, okay, let's say I can only cover 70% of the nets on the board. Which ones do I want to do? And how do I do it more, the most optimized? And let's say I use optical inspection later on. I'm going to use some boundary scan. I'm going to use X-ray. I'm going to use functional. That's great. Now I want to look at the total coverage and see that at the end of the day, I have 100% test coverage and that I have minimal overlap between all of these test technologies. There's no point to have all of these different test machines cover the same part of the board and have other parts which don't get tested at all.
Exactly.
Okay, what's crazy to me, you see board complexity growing just relentlessly, right?
Yeah.
And as that's happening, you have density growing at the same time. It's getting just more and more densely populated components packed tighter and tighter together. So how are you supposed to fit test points anywhere inside that now?
That's a good question. That's a good question.
So, first of all, some of the pads can be test points, okay? So not everything has to be a dedicated test point. And, some of these flying probes are very, very, small and can touch that. And if you do the analysis, you could see that if you just move it slightly without compromising too much, you could get a test point there. Or if you use boundary scan, for example, which is this test technique that essentially you're using the IC capability to test itself and test the surrounding components. If you use boundary scan, you don't need the test points. So as an example, if you know that these three ICs and BGAs on this board have boundary scan capability, you can use that. So you do have, the problem is if you don't do anything about this, you end up with functional. And functional is great, except that if it fails,
you
have no clue why. And you could go like 50 stages back to really find the root cause. So finding the root cause from functional test is almost impossible.
Especially in circuit already. Like my engineer told me one day, he was like, look, I could tell you that this is the right resistor, but it's connected to this, this, and this. So the actual reading that you're getting out of this is not the actual reading of the resistor. It's actually after it's filtered through all of these traces.
Okay.
At what point in the design process does this all take place?
Okay, so today I think it takes place very late in the game. Okay, probably design is done, a manufacturing engineer picks it up, maybe in the EMS world, maybe, and then he starts looking at this and doing some analysis. It's too late. All they can do is really like take this feedback and decide that the next revision will be better. But this revision is gone. But
It's burnt. Just
yeah, but
done.
It usually happens when you tell them what the functional test fixture is going to cost, right?
exactly. Yeah. But Siemens is uniquely positioned to take this now, left shift it, like we did with DFM, and essentially put it inside our schematic capture tool and allow designers doing, the schematics to start looking at where they're defining test points, electrically say, okay, you've got good coverage. This goes to layout. Now the layout guy understands where they want the test points. Now, he might not be able to do all of them, but they can have a dialogue and he can say, guys, look, I can't fit all of these test points. And they're like, okay, so do these ones. And the software can tell you which test points you should use, which ones you should actually use, because these are the critical nets. So it does help you in that way that it suggests, okay, if you can only do 7 test points, here are the 7s we would suggest. So we can really left shift this. So when the board goes to the CM, there is some kind of testability plan and they know what they're going to achieve.
How long does this software take to actually populate that suggestion?
It's very quick. It's like seconds. Yeah, it's not.
Is it like you upload the schematic and then show it the layout? Or
So we are going to embed this inside the Siemens Expedition flow. So because we are not going to make these EEs and layout guys DFT experts now. Let's be honest, they don't care about this, right? This is like not my
they
problem.
got another
syndrome.
job to already work on.
Right,
already.
right. I have to know all of this stuff, and testability and flying probe. Probably they haven't seen one in like 15 years, right?
Somebody else's problem, right?
This is it. But if you make it easy for them, and within the same layout application, they click a button, it runs in the background, they get the results. They're like, okay, I can handle this one. I understand the cost impact. I'll do this. So that's the plan. Of course, for non-Siemens flow, we will offer this as an add-on.
As a
But then,
standalone.
but then you would have to export a schematic file, a netlist, populate it, run the analysis, go back. It's not the best, but it's better than nothing.
And is that the software where multiple people can work on the same project at the same time?
Yes.
Yeah, I've seen that, yeah.
Yeah.
So I think
Yeah.
that point about ease of use for the designers is critical.
Critical.
Because the PCB designer today is trying to serve so many different masters,
Yeah.
right?
Yes.
Everybody has a design for, right? The
Yeah.
cleaning people want considerations, the manufacturing people want considerations. So it has to be baked in,
Yes.
and it has to be easy. Otherwise, they just don't have the bandwidth to do it.
Yeah.
The value proposition is really easy to see, though. I mean, we have a test department, and I mean, I'm sure our test engineer could validate the statement that once it's in circuit, it's very hard to, reverse engineer what the problem is, because it's a fully built circuit, and without the test points, it is a lot harder for him to try to work through where could something be going wrong. I mean, it's like a needle in a haystack. So this would probably make his life too easy, honestly.
Yeah. Now, there's another nice feature that they have is they can read in test results from different testers. This could be like a Kuyong AOI machine on the production floor, a Seika Flying Probe, an X-ray from Nordson. They read that. They don't care about what passed or failed, but from that they can see what the test coverage is. And then if you're an OEM and you've got a CM and you've done a prediction that you should be at 90% test coverage, if they read these reports and they're like, this is a 70% test coverage. We designed the board for 90%. Guys, why are you not testing this properly? I think that is a lot of times the case, that while there is better testability, it doesn't get done because of cost, complexity, and nobody today knows really how to do that. But Testway really allows you to do this comparison between the prediction and the actual, and tell your contract manufacturer, guys, you can have much better test coverage in the AOI. What are you doing? Or why are you inspecting this area? We're covering this in the X-ray. Leave it alone. And, so they can actually have this dialogue of what was predicted versus what they're actually getting from the production floor.
That's nice, because those contract manufacturers really need to be held accountable.
Yeah, it's like herding cats with them sometimes.
Yeah.
Well, so Siemens obviously is a fairly well-known company.
Yes.
It's interesting to see when Siemens decides to build something that they see a value themselves, or find value in a company that already exists and bring them into the blanket. So yeah, I can see why they had it figured out.
Yeah, they have it figured out.
Yeah.
It's
You don't need to reinvent the
no,
wheel.
it's
You
the
can just
leading
bring
product
it
of
into
its kind of the industry. It's really like very unique technology. They've developed it over the last 25 years, but I think they were lacking the channel, right, and the go-to-market, which Siemens, of course, can bring with its, significant sales force that can take this. A lot of active customers, and also we talk to designers, right? They don't really talk to designers, and designers were telling them, well, go talk to the test department, So we can go to the designers, explain to them why this is important, explain to, engineering management why this is going to save them a lot of money at the end of the day, and how we can improve slowly, revision by revision.
And expect to see a lot more circles on the boards that we got coming in.
Yeah. And we see in general that the NPI is increasing, right? We see more and more new product introductions. You probably know this as well. But, I have, EMS customers who used to do maybe an NPI a week, and now they do 10 a day, right? And this, Testway also helps in this new product introduction because it covers this whole test. Right, as a new product engineer, you bring in the board, you do a testability analysis. You can tell your customer already, this is going to have like pretty poor testability, by the way. Okay, and a lot of it is going to be based on functional. So be prepared because we can't use all of the other test techniques. And also try his best to come up with a test plan that is, the best he can do with, what he's been given.
Yeah, and you can connect nets together sometimes and know the value of what it's supposed to be.
Exactly, yeah.
Right?
So the EE can look at that, a test engineer can look at that and really understand what's going to be, there. And then Testway, of course, also helps with programming the different machines, giving them data. So programming all of these flying probes is very time-consuming, and especially in prototyping, you're only going to do 5 to 10 boards. Are you going to spend a week now programming the flying probe for 10 boards? So this really accelerates that, makes it easier.
It beats taking a multimeter to it, I'll tell you.
It sure does.
Yeah.
So for our listeners that are curious or interested in Testway, what's the best way for them to get some information, kind of put eyes on the product? Where would they navigate?
Well, probably at the moment they can go to Aster. The Aster website has all the information, and this is going to be rolled into the Siemens website. So within a few months, it's also going to be available on the Siemens EDA website. They can go in there. In our DFM section, they'll also find everything about design for test under kind of the Valor umbrella, where we have all of the manufacturability analysis. That's where it's going to reside, and they can get all of that information. There's a lot of videos also on YouTube that they can search for and see the program in action.
Awesome. Well, this is a great way to kick off.
It was a fun conversation. I just want to say it's hard to restrict it to this because Siemens EDA offers so many different tools I want to talk about.
Yeah, we could spend
we'll
the
do that on the
entirety
next
of
one.
today on it. Yeah.
Sure.
Congratulations on that.
Yeah, congratulations on the acquisition.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Thank you so much for joining
Thanks.
us.
We're excited about it.
Very
Thank you.
Thanks for tuning in.